Failed.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the East Bridgewater Select Board meeting for March 24th, 2025. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with Mr. David Nicholson, candidate for the fire chief position. David, if you take a seat, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Board.
Spill your soul out to us.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Dave, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for your interest in the fire chief job in East Bridgewater. I have a set of questions I'm going to ask you. I want you to answer them completely but succinctly. So if you can answer them just a couple words, that's fine, but we want you to still answer them completely. So we got about 20 minutes to answer the questions, and then maybe about 5 minutes for the board to ask some questions. Okay? So I'd like you to start out with the process with telling us a little bit about yourself and why the town of East Bridgewater and the East Bridgewater Fire Department's a good fit for you.
Okay. So my name is David Nicholson. I am a third-generation firefighter. My father was on in West Bridgewater, and my grandfather was on in Brockton. I'm currently employed in the town of Easton, as I have been for 8 years, running a shift right now of about 11 people. Depending on injuries, it keeps dropping back to 10, but roughly about 11. Like I said, I grew up in West Bridgewater, so I know the small town feel. I feel like the East Bridgewater Fire Department is going to be a good fit for me, where I have kind of grown up in a small town. I know how it's one big family, and I think that I bring a lot to the table being from a bigger department, coming to a little bit smaller department, and I know that there's a good opportunity to help the East Bridgewater Fire Department grow with myself as well.
Okay. Dave, what would you say your leadership style is, and why have you chosen that style?
I think my leadership style is kind of two different things. I think I'm a collaborative leader where I like to take input from everyone to help benefit the entire group as a whole. And I also think I have a coaching leadership style where my goal is to help everyone become better at their job. One of my first things that I did when I was a shift officer was asking everyone what they want to improve on and what their long-term goals are. And since I got on my shift, I've been working with everyone on the group to help them try to better themselves and achieve those goals.
If you had to list one thing you stand for as a leader, what would that be?
Accountability. I think that if I don't hold everyone accountable, and that includes myself, to a standard, then we're not going to have a cohesive group. And if I'm keeping one person to a standard and I'm not holding everyone else to that standard, it's going to start to foster a bad relationship within the group, and we're not going to help benefit everyone as a whole.
What advantages do you see having an open and collaborative relationship with other town departments and outside agencies?
So I think that's a very important thing, especially within the town. In the town of Easton, when I was on days doing the MIH position, we had a relationship with more than just the fire department. We had the police department, we had health and community services, which encompassed Board of Health, Veteran Services, Elder Services, the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, and we actually formed a committee called the CARES team, where we would meet once a month as a collaborative group and just discuss any residents in town that needed any assistance or services. And with our town clinician and the police department, myself and those two, we would actually go out and perform home visits and check in on people on a regular basis. We had people that we would go out and check in on monthly, but then we also had people that we were going back weekly just to check on them, say hi, make sure that they're getting all the services that they require, and help coordinate that process. We also, with the Board of Health, we were able to help condemn houses quickly if we needed to and get people into a better, safer environment if their house was not livable at that point. Just kind of gave us the ability as one cohesive team to be able to attack a problem from all the different angles that we had for resources within the town.
And you said MIH, what does that stand for?
Mobile Integrated Health. So we were actually in the process of trying to launch a full mobile integrated health program where we were actually going to be coupling with the Good Sam, and we were working on a partnership with Tufts to actually go and do discharges from the hospitals, home visits for people for follow-up, post-surgery, post-hospital visit, to try to alleviate the stress on the hospitals and actually bring our services to the home instead of trying to coordinate getting them back to a hospital for a blood pressure check or an EKG follow-up. We were actually working to be able to do that from the home for them. So it would take a burden off of the system and would help us as well interact with the community on another level.
So is that a piece of community?
Yes, it was a piece of community, part of the health and community services bubble that we formed, and the mobile integrated health was a little bit more intricate because we were actually trying to recoup funds from health insurance as part of it and receive a fee from the hospitals to help alleviate bringing the people there. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of things to jump through, but we started that process, and I'm hoping that's going to be accomplished within the next year, that we're actually going to be able to have a full MIH program in the town of Easton and be able to do home visits.
Okay, and again, your position in that was?
I was the captain of EMS in public health, so I was kind of at the forefront of it alongside with the deputy chief and the chief. I kind of brought the program to them after talking to some other fire departments that had that program already established, and was asking them for pointers and steps to go through and how to go about that process. I was actually able to get some conversations started with the Good Sam higher-ups, the VP, prior to the switch over from Steward to BMC. That threw a little kink in the armor there, but at least started the process, and that's our long-term goal in Easton, is to have a full operational mobile integrated health program.
What level of involvement have you had in budget creation and budget management?
Okay. I have not done a full budget. I've worked extensively with grants, managing equipment purchases. I'm currently working on our shift commander vehicle that I was given a budget for, worked on getting procurement for the quotes for the vehicles, along with any upgrades and accessories that we needed for that. I worked with a $100,000 earmark to procure equipment with the chief and the deputy, spending that budget and managing where we were putting the money to help better our equipment. And then in my previous position as well, we had a couple of grants through AFG where we were actually able to buy smoke detectors, CO alarms, fire prevention stuff for the home, so we could actually set up home safety visits and go out and give all these things as a freebie to the residents to help them if they needed it. We had oven mitts to prevent burns. We had fire stops that went above the range hoods on the stove, so if someone ever had a fire in their kitchen on the stove, it would actually help put the fire out and suppress it, so it would stay as just a stovetop fire and not into a full kitchen fire. But I worked with the deputy and the chief on managing that grant and spending that money, making sure we were within budget and within the confines of the grant.
Okay. Do you see the need to have a multi-year capital plan for a fire department? Why or why not?
Yes, I absolutely do. I think a 5-year minimum. Realistically, we're looking at 10 years for a lead time on trucks. Just given the fact that the lead times to take delivery of a vehicle is very long. Last year, we actually had 2 ambulances on order with a 4-year delivery. I went ahead and started sourcing other manufacturers to get our lead time down. And in the process of doing that, I went from getting us 2 ambulances to getting us 3 ambulances. We're actually going to be taking delivery of the first ambulance within the next 2 weeks. And then we have 2 custom ambulances on order that will be taking delivery of next April. But 5 years for a minimum for an operating budget and 10 years for an outlook for equipment replacement.
Okay. What do you see as the lifespan for an engine today?
25 years, 30 if we're lucky, depending on how maintenance is. And I think setting up a good maintenance schedule is important, making sure that it's being routinely oil changed, just preventative stuff is being replaced as needed, and also making sure we're washing them, keeping them clean. But 25 years.
Okay. What experience do you have in fire prevention and code enforcement?
I have a little bit of experience in fire prevention and code enforcement. I was actually the fire prevention captain 2 years ago for about 3 months, so I got my feet wet in a little bit. I did have a couple of big projects I worked on. It was a large tilt slab construction building that went up. It's now a roofing facility. And I helped with the beginning of the Silco Volkswagen project as well. So a little bit of experience in plan review, code enforcement, electrical energy storage systems, the batteries for the Tesla walls, solar panels. So a little bit of experience, not as much as I would like, but a little bit.
Do you have any certifications?
I am Fire Prevention 1 certified.
Fire Bay, I know Easton operates a fire-based EMS. What experience do you have in fire-based EMS transport?
So fire-based EMS is all I've ever known. I've never worked privates. I've only ever worked in a fire department setting. When I was on call in West Bridgewater, first as a basic, helping out the medics on callback, going on medicals, and then when I got my medic, then in the ambulance. I've never done anything besides fire-based EMS.
And Easton runs an ALS?
Yes, we currently run 2 ALS ambulances, and we have 2 ALS engines equipped with life pack monitors, cardiac drugs, and Lucas devices, automatic CPR machines. So anytime that, even if we have both ambulances at the hospital, the engine's still ALS equipped, so we're able to start any type of medical that we have and render aid immediately.
You run 2 medics on the ambulance? Or
Yes, yeah, we have 1 basic left on the department, otherwise everyone is a medic, and the last basic's retiring this year.
You spoke a little bit about grants. What experience do you have in writing and obtaining grants?
So I've written a couple of grants. I've written 1 grant by myself completely, and that was for a AFG grant through FEMA to work on pre-planning for the town. We recently switched over to an electronic system for our MDTs, or our mobile data terminals in the trucks, for a program called First Due. And in that process, we're actually able to upload information for both residential addresses and commercial addresses. So one of the grants I wrote was for $40,000 to actually provide overtime so we could go out and pre-plan all of these commercial structures, whether it's Knox box locations, nearest hydrant, fire alarm panel locations, high hazards. We went as far as in a few properties parking our apparatus where we want the truck parked for our First Due. That way, if it ever goes to a multi-alarm incident, we're not parking in the way, or we're exactly where we need to be. And with that process, we were actually able to share it with our neighboring communities. So if they're coming to an incident in our town, they have access to all of our pre-plans as well. So I wrote that grant entirely on my own, and then I assisted in writing an SCBA grant as well that we wrote last year for new SCBAs for the department, and also assisted with the mobile health grant that we wrote for Senior Safe, is what we called that program. That was the smoke detectors, CO alarms, grab handles, oven mitts, fire stop. I assisted with that grant as well.
Were you successful in all 3 grants?
We were not successful in my pre-planning grant, as that funding had ran out of money, and the SCBAs we were put on hold for because all of our packs did not reach the standard for what they wanted. So we're going to write for that again this year.
Okay. East Bridgewater Fire does not have a full-time training officer. Training is always an issue. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. How would you ensure proper and meaningful in-service training was achieved at East Bridgewater Fire?
So training is very important. What we do on my shift is we're trying to mix up our realm of what we're doing. So we're doing at least 1 or 2 hands-on, in-depth drills a month, even if it takes 1 or 2 days for us to complete it. That's throwing ladders, pulling hose lines, flowing water, pumping. That way everyone, at least at a minimum once a quarter, is getting their hands on doing all of the basic firefighting skills. And then we're also mixing in on days where inclement weather, stuff that it's not safe to be outside, we're doing online training. We're looking at Google Maps and doing pre-planning and kind of getting a little bit of everything involved. We're watching videos and replaying fires that we have videos of. But I think overall that it's very difficult to try to make a very strict plan, but a semi-strict plan that encompasses a wide variety of things and some flexibility so that you can get everything accomplished, whether it's once a quarter you're grading it off of or what monthly you want it off of. I think there's some flexibility in how we want to do it, but a semi-rigid program that's going to be completed throughout the year with a minimum of a quarterly basis, and then tracking it electronically in the program. We use a program in Easton. There's a bunch of them out there, but it gives us the ability for when we go to apply for a higher ISO rating, which is the insurance rating for the town, it gives us the ability to show that we have all these training hours and to help achieve a higher ISO rating. Our eventual goal for the town of Easton is an ISO 1.
Okay, you talked about everyone in Easton's a medic, but retention of firefighter medics is getting very difficult statewide. Even trying to hire firefighter medics is very difficult. What do you think can be done to retain and hire these highly qualified, trained firefighter medics?
I think culture, having a good culture where people feel as though they are part of the system and not just someone that shows up and is on the ambulance and rides the bus 7 days a week. You want someone that has some buy-in, and you want to incorporate a family-like atmosphere where everyone feels welcome and everyone has a say in helping the department grow as a whole and themselves as well. But culture is how you change and you retain people. We had a problem before where people were leaving and our culture changed. We became a little bit better and we all started buying in on the process, and now we're bringing in laterals. We haven't hired a new hire off the books that has no experience in quite some time.
They're bringing in medics from other.
Yeah, we're getting laterals in from other departments. People want to come to Easton because of our culture and the word of mouth from everyone that works there. So,
You think it's culture more than pay?
I think it's culture more than pay, yeah. I think pay is comparable across the board. I mean, without being a city and having a Quinn bill, pretty much everyone's pay is relatively the same, but having an environment where people want to go to work and they enjoy working and they're buying into the system and they're getting their input, and everyone has something to give, whether it's someone that's been on the job for a year or it's a 25-year guy. They have the ability to teach everyone as a whole, and just listening to that person that's only been here for a week that might have a background in construction, they're going to teach the rest of us something that we don't know, and giving them the ability and fostering that environment that they can breed and help all of us grow is what's going to help change.
Okay. The next question I have is a situational question. So share a professional experience you've had with a difficult employee that you supervised. How did you handle it? What was the outcome for the employee, and what was the outcome for the department?
Okay. So a couple of years ago, when we were in the process of going from 9-man shifts, when we were maintaining 9 and we were in the process of going to 11, we had one employee that when we had holdovers, which was happening very frequently, where a lot of guys would have a lot of time off. They were taking time off in the summer, and us junior guys were there often. It was when I was a brand new officer. This one member was coming in, finding out that he might get held over for the next day shift, and then going home sick every single day at about 3 o'clock before we sent out the lineup for the next day. So I pulled that member aside and I talked to him, and I just said, I'm like, you need to be here to benefit all of us. I'm taking holdovers, you're taking holdovers. We all have families, and we can work together as a group and find a plan. If you have something you can't miss, if it's your kid's birthday, just tell us and we can get through this whole process. So after I talked to him for a while, we went back and forth and discussed, being a team player and helping him benefit. Since then, he's not doing that anymore. It helped reduce his sick time to where he's actually building his sick time bank, and he's coming to work, and he's been a very positive part of the team.
So that has to do with forces?
Yes. Yeah.
If I was to call Chief Alexander, what type of employee would he say you were?
I think he would say I'm a great employee. I think he would ask for me to not come here. We have a lot of projects open. But I think he would say I'm a person that's going to say I'm going to do something, and I'm going to get it done. It might take me a little bit longer than some others, but I'm going to make sure it's done in detail and it's done within the confines of what we need to help better the department as a whole.
Okay. So I've had a lot of highly skilled and qualified people apply for this position. Why should the town of East Bridgewater pick you as their next fire chief?
Like I said, I grew up in the next town over, so I know this whole area. I live in Bridgewater currently. I grew up in West Bridgewater. I know the area. I'm part of the small town family where everyone knows everyone and everyone's going to help everyone. That's going to play into the role. I'm right down the street. I think it took me 12 minutes to get here with traffic behind a school bus. But I think I have a lot to offer where I can also grow as a fire chief, but I can also help the department grow and help foster that family environment. I've brought my 2-year-old to more structure fires than most new people that have been on for 5 years. I mean, he's into the job just as much as me. My wife loves it, and my 9-month-old has not gone to a fire yet. My wife told me I have to wait till he's 1, like my firstborn, so I think as I grow, I can help the department grow as well.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
So you've been to the Bridgewater and West Bridgewater, now you want to come to the best?
I guess so. I'm here.
Just ask. Explain a little bit more about the MIH. And
So-
how far did we get with it?
So we started the application process. I was moved out of that position onto a shift to fill a vacancy that was needed. So I was starting to meet with, we were kind of going 2 different avenues, where we wanted to host our own program, but then we were also in talks with Fall River, Swansea, North Attleboro, and there was one other community. We were working with the Bristol County Chiefs to talk about doing a Bristol County MIH program, where we would do a joint venture with all the communities in the county to try to go after a couple of the different hospitals that we access, to where we would actually being able to do discharges from home, to bring them back to the residents in the town. Then we would be going out and doing the home visits. So we started the process, started reaching out, networking with the departments. We had not filed the application, but we had completed it, and then Easton's running into some budget trouble at this point, so everything's kind of put on hold. And then, like I said, the Good Sam switch over between Stewart and BMC has also changed that process a little bit, so.
Okay, the culture that you were talking about for retention of firefighters, and it's great to hear that, you know, you're only bringing them in but not bringing in some new firefighters. Could you just go into that culture again on how you actually worked with the seniors that are trying to hear and bring these young people in to say, hey, I really want this job, it means a lot to me, and how you bring that down to them?
So, I mean, I'm part of the younger generation, obviously. And I think the biggest thing that I had when I got on the fire service was you had, you know, all these senior guys that we weren't part of them. There was a giant gap in hiring. It was about 15 years. So there was a big gap between the senior guys and the junior guys. And most of the junior guys were scared to ask the senior guys any questions. So I had no problem with it. I grew up in the firehouse. I've grown up with all these guys since I was walking. So I had no problem asking them questions and just trying to extract the information. And then on my current shift, we had a member that recently retired. He was 40 years on the job. And he didn't want to share what he had. He was trying to keep it to himself. He was very, you know, grumpy and on the way out the door. But when I came onto the shift, just asking him, can you help us? Can you show us something? Every single day, just give us something. Can you show us something? And that kind of helped foster the younger generation to actually start asking the question and engaging. Because the younger generation doesn't want to actually ask for help. We can Google it. Everyone thinks that you can just look on your phone, but there's a lot of insight that the senior guys have that without asking, you're never going to get that information out. And just creating a cohesiveness and kind of learning everyone's quirks is going to help benefit that as well.
Without having a full-time training officer intact now, how did that responsibility of the training go between shifts and officers and stuff like that?
So we would have officer meetings about every other month. We actually have a stipend officer that does training now. He's a captain, so he's created a general concept of what he wants. So in his plan, he has said, I want a hose line pulled, I want a ladder thrown, I want a pump pumped. Once a year was the general plan. And then we've kind of decided as an officer base that we need to increase that to help all of our members, where we have a very young fire department. We have a lot of people under 5 years on the job that don't have the reps and the experience, where we're getting one structure fire every 2 or 3 years if we're lucky, if you're working and you're on the engine. So we started with kind of a broad plan, and then we narrowed it down as an officer pool as a whole to bring that down so we were actually doing it more often than what the original plan was. But having the stipend position is what kind of kick-started that process, and then the input from all of us officers to increase the frequency of the training.
Okay. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, Dave, thanks for coming in. So I've asked the same question to pretty much all the candidates. And what I've started off with saying is the What I don't want to see happen with this department where the new chief is some of the things they do really well. They do a lot of things really well, but one of them is community work.
Okay.
You know, whether it be with community groups, you know, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club, Business Association, but more so with the schools. You know, they've had a great relationship over there, did some educational stuff, you know, and I really like to see that continue to grow, to bring in guys like yourself into the trade, you know, and not let them forget what the fire department's about and what the career is really about. Do you have any background in working with any of those organizations currently in Easton? You could give us an example of?
So, different groups, like we don't really have a Kiwanis, but we were doing different community stuff, especially in MIH, where I was reaching out to. We were going after younger kids in schools where we had bike safety, so we were getting in contact with the younger kids, like kindergarten through 2nd grade. We had Boston Children's Hospital come in, and they were actually doing a bike safety class talking about helmets, where we had that. Then we would do swim safety for the older kids, where we're actually engaging with an older group of kids at the schools, at the town pool. And then the seniors, we have Senior Safe Day that we were going out. We had members in the department and the schools at all times. But then in MIH, we were kind of amplifying that and just trying to get in contact with community CPR classes. We were doing monthly community CPR classes for the community. We were posting it in the schools, where we were having kids graduating from school coming and getting their CPR card before they went to go work. And we were engaging in it that way.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you've had some involvement in that. One of the projects that's coming up is a new safety building. You know, we've really advocated with the fire and the police to move forward with that project. And one of the things that obviously I feel needs to happen is that communication and working back with the community in order to get the support. You know, get the support of people paying the bill. You're not getting the building. You know, at the end of the day. So, what would you say would be an important role yourself, if you were the chief in that position, in order to get that support?
I think hosting an open house and bringing people in to see the current fire station, getting to know everyone on another level, doing touch-a-trucks, having guys or myself bring a fire truck to a touch-a-truck. There's always different events going around town. I know the YMCA in East Bridgewater runs an extensive summer program, going out, setting up a day and coordinating with them and bringing the ladder truck out or an engine and just being there and talking with everyone, the parents as they're coming through, and just putting ourselves out there and being available, setting up days for station tours where people can come through and see the station and see what the conditions are and what they look like to help push that building project forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, David. So if you were chosen as chief here, you'd be coming in with not as much experience as probably a lot of the people in the department currently. Yes. How do you think that would feel for you as their chief, as their supervisor? How do you think you'd handle that dynamic of being in charge of people that have far greater experience than you might, but also then fostering the younger firefighters like you have been?
I think if you asked me that question 3 years ago, I would have been terrified.
You still should be.
I'm a little bit better now. When I first got promoted, I got promoted to the most senior group, so I was the youngest one by a long shot. I could have been any one of their kids. And just working with them and listening. Like, everyone just wants to be heard and have a voice and communicating with them. I'm sure that there's going to be a little bit of time where we're going to feel each other out and try to figure out what's going on and how we're going to work together, but I don't want to go in and just roll with an iron fist. You got to listen to the guys because they have plenty of knowledge to share for me, and then I can also try to teach them something as well. And I think having an open communication on a two-way street, bringing information back and forth, and having an open door, and just sitting and listening to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, David, thank you.
Okay, you want to bring us into executive?
Yes, I make a motion to close open meeting and enter executive session, and we will return to open session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. I vote to close executive session meeting and return to open session. Carol Julius, aye.
Dave Sheedy, aye.
Peter Spagona.
We will return shortly.
Don't get comfortable.
Hey, Chief. Yeah, don't sit. Okay, we are back from executive session, and now we are going to go back out to executive sessions for a few moments. We have returned.
I make a motion to close open meeting and enter executive session and return to open session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto. Carol Julius, aye.
Dave Sheehy, aye.
Just for going, aye.
We'll be back. We have returned. We hope our audience is all back with us. Let's, Carol, for
Yes.
us, 6:15.
Yes, we have a discussion and vote on a Class 2 restrictions hour change for BMD LLC's 612R Plymouth Street, number 4.
Peter, you're on.
Okay, so Andy DeSantis and Michael Payton over at Michael Payton's building. They've been, it's been a few years, Rebecca, how long has it been now that they've had that license?
Definitely a few years. At
Yeah,
least.
so-
2 or 3 anyhow.
Yeah, what they do is they have Danny DeSantis, everybody knows the DeSantis names, his car lots. He sold his lots. He's now working with McLaren. So if anybody's looking for a $500,000 or plus car, you can go see Danny.
I'm going to buy 2.
You can work it. So there was some information that
Get a
needed to be.
retirement payout for later.
Yeah, possibly. There were some changes that needed to be made for registry purposes, so we had a discussion, myself and Charlie and Rebecca, as well as Lee and Michael and Danny to get some clarification, as well as Patrick upstairs. And based on that information, it looked as if everything was in order. I guess that's the best way to put it. So Danny was going to be here, DeSantis was going to be here today, but unfortunately he's stuck. I think he's in North Carolina or somewhere. So there's just a couple of changes, as you can see here. We're hoping the board can adopt these so that we can move forward and he can get his license renewed with the RMV by the end of the month.
Okay.
Question?
Nope.
That's it? Okay. Entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the restrictions hours changes on the Class 2 license for BMD LLC.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
In 30 seconds, we'll move on to our 6:30 public hearing for National Grid. Who's here to cut our rates down by 50%?
Whew,
We
that last
appreciate-
bill was a killer.
That would be nice.
Did you get a discount as an employee?
He's not allowed to tell you that.
You could tell me, but he'd have to kill me.
That's right.
Trade secrets.
Okay. We'll take, could you read the public hearing notice, please?
Yes, under the provisions of Chapter 166 of General Laws and any additions thereto or amendments thereof, the Select Board will hold a public hearing on March 24th, 2025 at 6:30 PM at the East Bridgewater Town Hall, 175 Central Street, East Bridgewater, Mass. 02333, on the petition of Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc., request permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way: Washington Street, National Grid to install one JO pole on Washington Street, beginning at a point approximately 245 feet northwest of the center line of the intersection of Hidden Acres and Washington Street, East Bridgewater, Mass.
Thank you. You're on, sir.
So this poll's going into,
Just give us your name and address.
oh, I'm sorry. Jared Aker for National Grid out of 100 East Ashland Street in Brockton. So this poll's going in to put in a recloser. It's just a device to help improve the reliability of the system. Saves time and effort, manpower for us to get out there and restore power.
Okay. Peter?
I don't even know what the hell he's talking
Me
about.
neither.
It's good, good by me.
Carol?
Do we get a discount?
Yeah, we're getting 50% off
For a
our
new-
next bill.
Okay. No, I do not have any questions.
Okay,
I know we do have at least one abutter for one of the hearings. I don't know if it's this one or the next one.
Okay.
You should recommend that.
anyone here to talk on this?
Oh, I was just wondering where the location is exactly. When you say 245 feet, where does that put us on the map? So I'm at 1407, so I just want to make sure it's not going smack dab in the middle of my lawn.
Do we have the map?
The map should have been
It's in our
sent
packet,
over
yeah.
to you guys.
You're the Washington Street, not Spring Street.
Washington.
Washington. There is a map, I don't know.
I think, did I email you the map?
Yep, is that where we're going with 100%? That location? 'Cause I did just look at.
Whatever's on,
an email
whatever's
about a
given to
week
us.
ago.
Yeah, that's, oh. Yeah, so we try to keep it, as evenly spaced as we can in order to allow crews and everything to get the trucks in between. And, the trucks, they usually have like the, bucket and the boom lifts on them so the crews can get up and work around them. So we try to keep it evenly spaced as much as we can to allow as much room as possible for our crews to safely work. So that's the ideal location. Is it impeding anything specifically?
That's not in front of our home at all. I just wanted to make sure that that's where that was going to be put up, that it wasn't going to be moved from that spot, from our house.
Where it's listed, it should be put there.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't see if there was gonna be any major relocation, it would be brought back before everybody.
Okay.
And I'm assuming an engineer might have possibly looked at this to figure out where it's best suited. I mean.
Yeah, no, when we get these jobs and everything, we go out and we take a look to see if anything around the area needs to be brought up to standard in order to accommodate the new equipment, and we take a look to see what the best location would be. I highly doubt that one of our engineers just, picked a point
Random
on our
spot, right,
system.
right.
And, there's many tiers to the process, so it's highly unlikely that somebody just went
Right.
there.
Looks good, yeah. No,
But, yeah.
yeah, we've had these in front of us before, and 99% of the time, it's always in that same location.
Does that answer your question? Anyone else?
No, of course.
Okay. Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to
Thank
close the
you. I only
public
had the
hearing?
second one printed.
Second.
Okay. We can go ahead and vote on this because we still have a few minutes before we start the next one.
Make a motion to approve the installation of the pole 245 feet northwest of the center line of the intersection of Hidden Acres and Washington Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have to wait for a few more minutes, 6:40, so we can go ahead and
6
move on to
minutes.
our action items.
We're skipping number 1, I assume.
Unless you wanted, I mean, the board has a few choices, obviously. We did another interview earlier tonight. The board could decide tonight to choose one of the 4 candidates that it's interviewed, other, obviously, than Mr. Allen, who withdrew his application. The board could decide to hold a special meeting later this week, and basically mull over the choices it has. Obviously, at that future meeting, it could also decide to reopen, not choose any of the 4 people it's interviewed, but reopen the application process for, I would say, a very limited amount of time. And then my recommendation would be to work with Jack, even without an assessment center, to review the applications that you would receive, again, on a very short basis, because we have received applications even after the deadline. I guess 1 or 2 have come in the last week because of what we've been doing. But that would be another choice for the board also.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a position now to go any further until we absorb the interview we just had, so we can set up another meeting for the end of the week if you'd like. Friday.
Friday is tricky for me this week. I have an appointment
Thursday?
Thursday. I could do Thursday at 3:30.
Peter?
Sure.
All right, why don't we go ahead and plan on
Thursday.
getting back together 3:30 on Thursday and to discuss the possibility of picking another candidate for the fire chief.
Okay. All right. Action item number 2, make a motion to vote and sign a contract with Town Administrator Charles Seelig. Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah,
You sticking around?
I'm sticking around.
Second.
We don't have enough time for discussion, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve but not release the minutes of the February 24th, 2025 and March 10th, 2025 Select Board Executive Session meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2025, March 14th, 2025, and March 19th, 2025 Select Board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Man, we've been meeting a lot, huh? Jeez.
After you get through, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the Southeastern Regional Service Group DPW supply contract award sheet commencing March 1st, 2025 for a 12-month period.
Second.
Any discussion? This is our annual. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion to approve the request from the fire chief for the quarterly ambulance billing abatements through March 12th, 2025 in the amount of $33,420.10.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the request from the Veterans Agent for the use of the Town Common and Town Hall parking lot on Memorial Day only in 2025 through 2030. Well, he's planning ahead. For Memorial Day services from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. May 26, 2025, May 25th, 2026, May 31st, 2027, May 29th, 2028, May 28th, 2029, and May 27th, 2030.
Second.
Again, I had.
Not here.
I may not be in the world, but that's okay. Yeah, this is something I had talked with the Veterans Agent about, because we're just afraid that he may not get paperwork done in time and someone else may, without us knowing it, try to reserve that for wedding, stuff like that. So let's get it, this is ours, it's the town's, it's not gonna change. He is not included in there, like the Veterans Parade, which we only have every 3rd year.
Right.
So he's just doing it for Memorial Day.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the request from the Board of Health to use the outside of Sachem Rock and have access to the basement of the main building to hold a rabies clinic for dogs and cats on June 9th, 2025, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., rain date of Tuesday, June 10th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? This is their annual rabies clinic. All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the request from EBCAM Executive Director Russ Hannigan to donate the items to PEG Rhode Island TV, a 501c3 nonprofit in Rhode Island, as printed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to discuss and possibly vote to award a contract for animal control officer and inspector of animal services and appointment for each position.
And we did not get any bids today, so I will call our current vendor and find out if there's a problem or a situation or issue. I'm gonna have to rebid it, but for the time being, you know.
Okay, we'll pass that over.
Really?
Uh,
Nothing?
Time to
Review,
get on the phone, Peter.
Yeah.
review and discuss electronic sign policy.
Right, Rebecca Lee and myself worked on putting this together.
This is specific to the electronic sign out front.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not any other signs, just this one. And we, you know, obviously, the priority, you know, are town-oriented in the sense of town boards, committees, departments. Emergencies have higher priority than other announcements and such, though one of the things about that is that we have the flexibility of running a number of messages at the same time. We would want to encourage community groups here, based here in East Bridgewater. If they're interested in having brief messages on the sign, that'd be great too. We'd like that to be a place where people can get information.
I have one I can submit as soon as this is approved. Pancake breakfast.
Do we have anything that's going to require them to try and give us like a week's notice prior?
Says
I'm
2 weeks.
trying to pull it up right now.
Yes, we did. All requests must be submitted 1 week prior to the requested posting
Oh,
date.
okay. Yeah, I think that covers everything.
And is it pretty straightforward in terms of how you go about putting stuff up there? I know you were waiting to have training before we.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Yeah, again, you have to like be repetitive in doing it, you know, or you're like, oh, how did I do that?
Yeah, when you don't do it as
Yeah,
frequently.
but we just put up today, we put the hydrant flushing
Great,
notification up today. So, yeah, they just emailed us and said, can you put this up? And we did it.
excellent, that looks good.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is it for action items. Look
Okay,
at
we will
that,
go
right
to
on
our-
time.
6:40.
6:40, public hearing for another 25% decrease in our bill.
Under the
reached
provisions of Chapter
75.
166 of General Laws and any additions thereto or amendments thereof, the Select Board will hold a public hearing on April 14th. No. April 14th? No.
Correct.
March
Right.
24th, 2025, at 6:30 PM at the East Bridgewater Town Hall, 175 Central Street, East Bridgewater, Mass. 02333, on the petition of Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc., request permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way: Spring Street, National Grid to install one JO pole on Spring Street beginning at a point approximately 1,365 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Spring Street and Oregon Street. National Grid to install new P33-50 and 61 VS recloser, East Bridgewater.
Second.
What that means.
You're up again.
Still me from National Grid, Jared Aker. Yeah, it's another reliability device. The 6IV is just, you know, like the model number of the recloser. So it's just increased safety, reliability of the network.
What's a recloser?
How deep do you want to get?
Not at all.
Not,
Just
no.
a
Zero.
Ignore
Zero
him.
deepness.
Goes like this a couple times.
Okay, good. All right. Anyone in the audience want to talk about this?
6 IVs is how
If not, we will, a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept.
I make a motion to approve the installation of the new P3350 and the 6 IVs recloser, JO pole. I
Second.
learned how to say it.
Any further discussion?
So
Not
moved.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, bud.
Thank you, Say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. The whole committee's not here.
Yeah, we'll have to wait for the rest of the,
We scheduled this for 7, so I know we had at least 2 people who would be expecting to come here at 7.
Yep.
right.
That's
So,
fine, we'll
Can we move on?
do a dog
got you.
and pony show for 15 minutes.
Got you.
You can go ahead with town administrator report.
There's nothing
Oh,
else.
good.
I'm sorry.
It says discuss,
It's the only time you have ever said that.
it says
then
you're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
discuss priorities from
No,
calendar
it's the
year
only time you've ever said you don't
2025.
have a.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. One of the contract the board and myself are signing, one of the things is that we need to come up with a list of priorities for me, where should be prioritizing my time, not necessarily just the town priorities, but in the sense of what, given the time I have on any given day or week, what I should be doing. I think maybe the best thing is to come back to you all on the 14th, but in between then and now, to send you a draft, and if there are things that you would want me to add to that, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Could you expound upon that for about 15 minutes?
But other than the budget's number 1, number 2, and number 3, and there's nothing else but the budget?
Yeah.
Well, we got the sewer system would be nice to get lined, but, sometimes it's, those who sit also serve, in the sense of we're all, Peter, like myself and Peter, are just waiting for other folks to sign off on everything, so. We have the MBTA, we have the 3A. We'd like to get those done in May also.
We have, how about the central school? You want to give us an update on, is it Wednesday they're having a public hearing?
It's a couple of weeks from now, I think, Gina, right? It's 2 weeks from now, we're having the
We have
public
a
forum
meeting
on Central
tomorrow,
School.
Yes, April 8th.
Yes.
Okay,
We're having another school building committee meeting tomorrow, yes.
okay.
The middle school project, we have been able, through Gina's efforts, to have MSBA agree that we can delay the work sufficiently so that the vote with the MSBA, once we get the feasibility study, won't happen until closer to the end of the year. So our hope, we did not want the central school project and the middle school project to interfere with each other. Obviously, we're asking on both of those what would be substantial amounts of money in general. Obviously, the central school far, far more than the middle school. But we didn't want one to be judged against the other. We wanted them to be judged on their own. So the concept will be still central school. The aim is to have our town meeting and our vote on the debt exclusion in November. At that point, the MSBA in December will be also voting on the middle school project. We'll have, at some point, a vote in town meeting on that project during the first part of 2026. We won't do the work at the middle school this summer of '26, but we'll then come back in '27 to get the work done.
Anything else?
Not right now, no.
Board discussions? Carol, go ahead. Do your pancake breakfast.
Pancake breakfast this Sunday, March 30th, from 7 a.m. until noon. $9 for adults and $5 for kids, I think. I don't know. But pancakes, eggs, bacon, toast, all the fixins. Come support Kiwanis and help us raise money to give back to the town.
Okay.
And the food drive. Yes. We have, this year, the club has done a special thing, and there's a shed, and we're doing a contest to ask the school children at Central School and Middle School to name the shed, and we're also asking people to bring food to fill the shed and feed the town as part of the pancake breakfast. So those donations can be dropped off the day of the pancake breakfast, and arrangements can also be made to drop them off before or after. The shed is currently in place at the middle school,
Okay, good.
looking lovely, with this nice cupola.
And where'd that shed come from?
That shed came from Chapin's.
Donated.
It was not donated, but there was a significant discount.
Okay, good. Thank you. Chapin's.
And it's a beautiful shed. Much better than our old trailer for anybody who ever bought a Christmas tree and had to go into that awful trailer.
Right.
That's it, that's all I got.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, so I'll expand upon a little bit on Charlie's communication to us about the grants that we're still waiting on for the SOAR project. We feel we're close. So that being said, we wanted to open up the discussion once again with Equity Industrial Partners. They're the owners of Hard Hanks Building as well as the Signature, I guess now, right? Signature Building, yeah. So back in 2022, one of the driving forces behind this was to partner with them. Obviously, they wanted to expand the area over there, either medically or in some of the fields that they have with Hard Hanks, whatnot. Unable to do that because of the sewer capacity they have right now in the system. So we were able to sign a letter of intent, which helped us move the process forward with both the grants that equal out to about $7 million between the state and Fed. But as I said, it was 2022, so they signed a letter of intent, which we were able to present. I'm happy to make notice today that myself, Charlie, as well as John Haynes sat back with the group from Equity this afternoon, and they are still very much part of this process, to the fact where they even spoke about sending them over an agreement as soon as the next 7 to 10 days so they could put something into place. For us, this project has always been about not only, homes on one end, but most importantly, trying to get our commercial and industrial partnerships up. and this would be a huge advantage. They're talking about between 22,000 and 24,000 gallons that they'd be looking for over in that area. You do the math on that for what potentially we'd be looking for them, because they are not in the district, they're outside of the district, so they'd have to pull the pipe across Highland to get to them. But for the town of East Bridgewater, you know, at $65 a gallon at 24,000 gallons, you know, we're looking in, you know, in a substantial amount of money.
And that's for the connection fee.
Connection.
As we mentioned during the conversation, this is not when we turn the faucet on and we get flow. They're not paying $65 a gallon
Right,
for
no,
that.
this is connection. Yeah, absolutely, yeah, this is money to the town.
Right, this is for the building the pipeline and such.
Yeah, without any infrastructure and from us. I mean, you know, we're not on that, it's all on them, but great conversation, and was glad to see. Kind of knew that. Jim Knight's been over there for quite a while, resident East Bridgewater, so I've been continuing to talk with him over the course of, you know, the last 2 years as it's been, so had a good feeling, but it was nice to at least have that conversation with them to know that they're still very much a part of this whole district.
Did the public ask a question?
No. They do, they ask it on social media all the time. Is that what you want to do, or do you want to actually ask a?
Could I ask?
Sure.
Do you know what plans they have for those properties?
They didn't really specifically say. He did mention that Signature is signed a long-term lease with them on that building. So the medical portion of it is still wide open. They have some options there that they'd like to be able to talk to them. They're not able to do that with what they've got over there. So they, I think a 10 or 15-year lease with them is what he mentioned today. And then Howard Hanks just signed on for another 7 years. And I know they're expanding the building over there. They're actually in the process now. They're going to cut the roof, and they're going up for shelving and things of that nature. So what they potentially would do outside in another space for that building. But we did, myself, John Haynes, I think it was Craig Windsor, and Patrick Franey, we did a tour of that about a year and a half ago of the building. And, you know, I always looked at Howard Hanks as being, you know, the flyer you get in the mailbox, you know, and instantly throw it in the recycling bin. But, you know, going through there, you know, learned quite a bit more about what they've got going on. They've now involved much heavily into the advertising of actually products, you know. The technology they have now is somebody goes online, as we've all seen, you Google something, next thing you know, it's coming up constantly in your feed or wherever you're at. They have now got a system that would be able to have the companies go to them, send the product out. So they had shelves and shelves of, you know, small toothpaste or lip balm or whatever the case may be. And their structure now is kind of turned to that area a lot more, and I guess they've grown quite a bit, so.
So this could mean some significant tax revenue to the town?
Well, eventually, yeah, I mean, that was the plan, you know, so, again, we're still a
Probably
little
not
ways away.
overnight, John.
Yeah. won't
Not
be-
by July 1st.
Won't be tomorrow, but it will certainly, you know, hopefully be sooner than later if we can get this off the ground. So they're very excited to move forward with us, for sure. Anything else you want to add, Charlie? Is that pretty good?
Yeah, I think that covers it. I mean, I think their intent has always been, by the Signature building, is to have other leaseholders come in and have new structures built there. That's what they were talking
Yeah.
about when we were talking with them 3 years ago. I think that's still their intent.
Yeah, 100%.
Because the Signature building can use their current septic system, but if they wanted to build any additional facilities there, they would need to have that tie into the sewer system.
Right.
And that was the whole intent for them wanting to be a participant of this.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Walsh, you might remember too, I mean, that originally was proposed for like 100,000 square feet of different types of
Well, originally,
structures.
when it started, the first building, it was gonna be 4 or 5 buildings there.
Right,
And when they perked it, they couldn't do it. But there was definitely conversation about at least one other building there. And at the time, the conversation was about for youth behavioral beds. I don't know if that's still in play or not, but there's some great opportunity there.
yeah, 100%.
At the last I had heard, it would be youth and adult behavioral, and to see how much they could get into that building.
Right.
Well, if it is youth and adult, We'll make sure you get a place.
I already booked it.
Okay?
Okay, we have a few minutes. Anything else? Yeah.
No, that's
All
about
right,
it.
I have failed to ask, is anyone here for open forum?
Oh, that's right, we skipped.
No one here for open forum, then we'll close open forum. And I think we are close enough to the 7 o'clock that we can meet with the representative of the Finance Committee and the School Committee.
Chief Melanie wanted to be here.
Yep, sounds good.
We'll do that in about 3 or 4 minutes.
You want us to come up there, Dave?
Please.
Oh.
Well, I don't know how much we can accommodate up here. We might need a few extra chairs.
Yeah, you can grab them right now. The table looks.
Dave, how
long.
many
Oh,
people you
Yeah,
have?
it is a long call. I was posting that earlier. Yeah, that,
I don't wanna get in
the
trouble.
guy
Sitting on our
who
laps.
did that.
We'll hear you.
Yeah.
Do you want us to sit together with you?
Well, we can be a party up here.
How we doing? How we doing?
No,
Eventually, yeah.
We see you over there with
Oh.
all the signs in your eyes.
You'll be retired, you'll be retired, John, before we get any of it.
Not gonna go through the whole presentation, but just
Yep.
let me share it.
You got that covered? Yeah.
While we've got a little time, do we know, have we had anyone pull papers for the?
One person I know of, I haven't double checked and see.
Okay.
Wednesday's the last day.
Just one.
Just one? Oh, it's only one position?
Oh, really?
Oh, there's two.
Oh, it's two positions, but only one.
Aaron,
Oh, Aaron, that's right.
I think a second person pulled.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
did they?
really? Was that today?
They were collecting signatures.
Good.
Sure. That's not. Dan. We'll find out. Dan?
Memorize it. Well, if you're ready for us, at least for the school's part of this, we just want to share, I think first and foremost, I've been on the committee on and off for a long time, and this is the first year I've really sensed a really collaborative effort. I know 2026 fiscal year is going to be a challenge for the town in general, and then for all the specific departments, school committee among them, based on our financial situation and all. And I think Dave has been at a lot of our meetings, if not all of them, and just, as well as Charlie, and just really been a collaborative effort, and I really feel good about that. It doesn't make the problems any smaller in general, but it does spread it out and feel like, okay, we're working in this together. And you'll see in the documents that Dr. Williams just gave you, which was presented to the public a week or so ago, that year over year, I think what you show in there is $1.5 million higher than last year, which I know is not what you wanted to hear, but we're still working with the teachers, not that the teachers are part of this, I just want to footnote that we have been working with the teachers on their contract, and we're not done yet, but I would also say they've been very collaborative as well, too, which again, makes everything so much, that doesn't make the problem go away, but it makes it easier to contend with. So we're not 100% done with that, but you can see I'll let John and Dr. Williams talk about any of the specifics, but you'll see the biggest challenge we have is in sped expense, transportation, tuitions, et cetera, and that's just something out of our control. And we have some thoughts as to how we might mitigate some of those dollars and cents, and moving some money from our revolving accounts. Not that that's the perfect solution, but it might help us at least get into the new year as well. And I don't know, I know you just got that, so I won't ask for your questions, but I don't know, Dr. Williams or John, anything you want to add to that?
I think you've
done a good job of just kind of summarizing where we're at. One of the things that I just want to make sure is clear is, even though we have this gap, it still includes reductions that have already been made in order to get us to where we are right now. So we're looking at 18 positions that are being reduced. Certainly when we're making those decisions, we're collaborative in our approach, talking with building principals. One of the areas that we really have looked at closely is enrollment, and we've noticed that enrollment has gone down. So that's where we first look to see if any reductions could be made there. Certainly with 18 positions, we're impacting programming to some extent. We can't say that, you know, there's not going to be any problems with those reductions, but certainly we know with the issues that we're faced with, we have a responsibility in making sure that we're really looking at our budget and being, as Mr. McKinnon said, collaborative in our approach, making sure that we're prioritizing what we need to prioritize so that we're not jeopardizing our programming, but certainly we need to acknowledge that when we're cutting that amount of positions, it is going to have an impact on the programming that we offer. Want to share some of the specific costs that are contributing?
So the majority of our costs, or 87% of our costs, are salary and special ed tuitions and transportations. Now, we've seen an increase in the number of students requiring out-of-district education, and also the increase in the price of those tuitions to these out-of-district areas. A public school program, which our children go to, is anywhere from $40,000 to $45,000. A collaborative school is anywhere from $55,000 to $70,000. A private day school is anywhere from $75,000 to $191,000. And our private residential schools, which some of our children go to, is between $300,000 to $400,000. We've seen an increase in the number of students that have gone there. In addition to that increase, we were projecting a decrease in circuit breaker funding. For the past 9 years, I've been able to prepay tuitions with circuit breaker. I can't do that in fiscal year 26. Any circuit breaker money we receive in fiscal year 25 is going to be spent in fiscal year 25 on fiscal year 25 tuitions. Last year, we filed for a different type of circuit breaker, extraordinary relief circuit breaker. We received about $600,000. We're filing for that again this year. We should be receiving another $600,000. That's all going to go to the cost of this year's tuitions. I'm projecting next year that extraordinary relief circuit breaker will be zero, only because we've maxed out. So it's challenging. I mean, we've been able to manage with tuitions and transportation utilizing circuit breaker, but that has decreased, which is the main reason why we're asking for that $1.5 million increase in budget from last year. We're not done. I think Dave can attest to the fact that we're reviewing line item by line item. We continue to do that. We feel as though we have found some savings, but nothing has been approved by the school committee yet, so it will be shortly. We're looking at different things like busing, possibly going from 13 buses to 12 buses. That would save some money.
How much would that save, John?
$98,700. But it would also require us to possibly change the start and stop times for schools. It's a lot of work to go from 13 buses to 12 buses. But it's something we're looking at. I'm working with Lucini, work with them almost every day, trying to figure out if that's a possibility.
Community stops would be adjusted so that they wouldn't be going into as many cul-de-sacs, so that they can make routes more efficient.
Yeah, we're pretty lenient with our busing going down a lot of cul-de-sacs. I mean, we're probably going to have to be a little more, we're definitely going to have to be a little more stricter on that if we go to 12 buses.
We're also not obligated to provide busing for students over 6th grade, so 7 through 12. It's now pay to ride, so if we eliminated that, it could be 7 through 12 with no busing, as well as K to 6 if they're under 2 miles. Right now, we're legally obligated to provide busing for over 2 miles for students in K to 6, and we do pay to ride for under 2 miles for K to 6.
We know cutting out busing for the high school students, or junior high to high school, it's about 400 riders. And although it would save us about $300,000 or $400,000, it's pretty dramatic, and I'm sure that would disrupt a lot of the households and how people's routine is built around their kids coming and going to school. So we wanted to make sure that one of our members, Peter Furier, had mentioned, we want to cut whatever we can cut, but not impact education. And so we've looked at all those things. And John and Dr. Williams done a great job trying to look through all that, and that's where we're at. We're optimistic that we can get that number a little bit lower, if not significantly lower. I don't know if we can get it to 0, but we're working on it.
I do want to say that the transparency and working together has been fantastic. When I joined the subcommittee, I was expecting fire and brimstone, you know, but it's all been very honest and open, discussing every possible option. Not only are they looking within the schools on what they can do, but I continue to work with Melanie on what we're gonna do on this other side of the budget, et cetera, with some of the other departments. So, pretty confident we'll be able to close the gap. But closing the gap this year, we just gotta think about what's gonna happen next year. Because right now, in any forecast we have, no matter how conservative it is, I think it's after year 4, we fall off the cliff and all the stabilization funds are gone. 4th or 5th year. Yeah. So we also don't want it to affect our bond rating. We don't want to deplete our stabilization funds either. So we're still going to have a few years of some difficult decisions down the road. Decisions we make today may have to be, or this year, may have to be enhanced upon next year to get where we need to be. But, you know, I feel pretty good that working together, we'll get through this. Because I think that the situation the town is in, not only the department heads, but the school also understands it and feels it too. They know where we're coming from. They're very well educated on what our sources of revenue are, where they are, how it's coming, how our growth is, et cetera. So it's been an education process for all, even for myself, to learn more about what goes on over there. But I do say that it's a work in progress, like they said, but they are working on it, and I gotta give them credit for that. So, and for me, that's a pretty good statement, I think, huh?
I've never heard you be so positive.
Well, there's no arguing, there's really great conversation, transparency, things are put on the table, we're looking at it, we're discussing all the options. You know, I think one of the worst case scenarios this year will be if we have to eliminate busing for 7 to the high school, whatever. Maybe we can keep it, maybe we can't. If we can, who knows if it's gonna be there next year. People need to understand what the future holds, not just what this one budget season holds. So.
It is great to hear the collaboration going on, you know, and I've already heard all the committees have had. They are doing everything over and above, outside the box and everything else. And hearing Dave talk this positive, it is really a great,
It's a
great
significant
move.
step, huh?
You know, it's not just unheard of.
This is being recorded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we, certainly, those of us on the school side of this, understand we're part of the town, and we're a big expense, quote unquote, to the town. We understand that, we're a big part of the budget. And, but we also do important work and educating the kids, children in our community, and obviously that's paramount to all of us, even if you don't have children in the system now, you once probably did, or we all certainly were part of a system somewhere, and people had to make these kind of decisions and set up programs to make sure everyone got the education they deserve. And so that's what we're doing, and we know part of the town. I do think talking on education part, and I know it's part of the thought process, is to make sure the people in the town understand what's happening. And, it isn't any, what I think has been particularly collaborative is who's ever come to the table with us, everybody who's come to the table, it hasn't been pointing the finger. It's been open-minded and say, oh, what can we do? What else can we do? How do we think about this differently? And I think it's produced some great results. And again, I can't speak more highly of the work that Dr. Williams and Mr. Shea have done, just pouring through those numbers, thinking about, talking with the educators, the building principals, going line by line, item by item, where else we can cut. Still a work in progress, and we're hoping to have more good news shortly, but we're not there yet, so.
And everybody's got to know, if you watch the news even tonight, we're not alone.
Right.
Newton's having problems, Brookline's having problems, North Andover were in protest today, they just don't have the funds. And, some of it comes back to unfunded mandates, and there's no real regulation on the outside education world for SPED. They can charge us whatever they want. We need some legislative help around this, but that hasn't really been forthcoming.
To that point, tomorrow night, I'm going to attend a meeting over in Plymouth with some legislators for a group of districts in that area to have a dialogue with our legislators. And what I've reached out through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to see, okay, what are we dealing with that's unique? And it's not in general. SPED has been a huge number and has continued to grow almost exponentially. And that's really caused the problem, not only just for us, but for a lot of towns and cities. And so I was invited to sit in on that meeting just to hear the dialogue and then put together something on our side with our specific legislators to say, hey, this is what we're dealing with too. And my intention would be much the same as we've talked about here, just a collaborative, not pointing fingers, not jumping up and down, just saying, look, this is the reality, and we're dealing with it, and we don't have control over how much we're charged for these kind of services. They're important, and we need to have them, but we can't control. We're just placed, the bill is placed in front of us and said, there you go, that's what it's going to cost you. And I'm hoping, I'll be optimistic that legislators, when they hear that, will put some effort behind giving us some sort of relief, whether it's in the circuit breaker world or wherever it is. We'll take whatever relief we can get. So trying to reach beyond our boundaries to see where we are compared with all other towns, and what kind of shape they're in, and where they're getting help or asking for help, and we'll do the same. So.
I think the other thing we could work with our legislators on is the Plymouth County retirement assessment. There has to be something that can be done by stretching out the assessment. I mean, the Plymouth County assessment is going to kill us over the next, up to 2031. It's doing it to every town, I would say probably every town in Plymouth County.
It's not just Plymouth County, neither, it's everywhere. Charlie, you want to respond on that one a little bit about the reason we're not extending that any further than the 6 years?
Well, I don't want to speak for Plymouth County in that sense, but I think I can explain. I think their feeling is that just recently they moved it from 2029 to 2031 because they had a bad market year in 2022. The mortality tables had changed so that people are living longer, and obviously there's a greater payout on the pensions and such. So Plymouth County had met with the select board about a year ago and went over that, and then the following fall, so about 6 months ago, they moved it from 2029 to 2031. I think they're resistant about moving it further right now because they want to have those other years, all the way to 2040, as an option. If things are bad again, For instance, obviously, if you just look at the market the last month, it's difficult to see Plymouth County getting the 8% return on the investment that they need to get to 2031. They need that 8% every single year. And it doesn't mean that they won't, but I think, as John pointed out, it may be that we need to approach them differently in the sense of, they spoke with, was it the school superintendent's, Gina, I think?
Yes, Mass Superintendent.
They've spoken with boards of selectmen, or select boards. I don't see us getting a lot of relief in terms of financial aid from the state legislature. They have their own situation. For instance, the teachers' retirement fund is actually at a lower percentage of funded for the liability than Plymouth County is. But they may, I think if more voices are heard by them, there may be a greater chance that they will extend it from 2031. The problem is, even if they do that, it may not give us immediate relief, and it may not give us even long-lasting relief, because it's the equivalent of taking your 30-year mortgage and going to 40, or your 20 to a 30, in that on an annual basis, you'll pay out a little bit less, but in a cumulative basis, you'll pay out more because you're holding on to the principal more and having to pay the interest more. But that's where we are there. Obviously, the other problem, and we have teachers and non-teachers, everybody on the health insurance program, is that we had what we thought were high rates or high increases the last few years, and turns out they were relatively better than what we're getting this year in that. And even with that, I think we were estimating, I think, at 1.10% increase, and it's more between 11 and 12, which doesn't sound much, but for a town our size, every percent increase counts. And we're not, from talking to our health insurance consultants and such, we're not necessarily going to see a lot of relief there either in terms of a dramatic drop, not in rates, but dramatic drop in increases on an annual basis. So we're going to be struggling in both of those areas, along with special education, for quite some time to come.
I mean, think about the situation we really have to pull through this year. Years ago, we didn't have this commitment to Plymouth County retirement. If we didn't have the commitment to Plymouth County retirement this year, special ed still would have been, it wouldn't even cover the added expense for that. So, I mean, I think we do need some legislative help.
Melanie, I think, what is it, 1.8 million we're getting for new revenue this year?
Yeah.
Was the estimate, and special ed by itself is 1.5, 1.3?
1.3.
That would, that, you can start off with trying to assemble your puzzle any way you want. You can talk about special ed, you can talk about health insurance, you can talk about retirement, you can talk about the increase in the debt load. You can't get one or two of those pieces, more than one or two of those pieces into the puzzle, and you still have all these other pieces that need to be fit into it. And that's the challenge, is so many of these things are mandatory, and we can't unilaterally just increase our revenues. I mean, the school committee and the school's administration met with our bond advisors. We did a virtual call with them last week, and I think it was interesting that our bond advisors were pushing hard on the idea that you're going to need to seriously take a look at doing a Proposition 2.5 override. And everybody on our side of the phone counted that this is East Bridgewater. I don't mean that this is Sparta. This is East Bridgewater in the sense that we don't expect, we could put it on the ballot, but we do not expect it to pass here. It's been, and we've got Central School coming up, which is a vital project for the town, which we were going to be asking for a very material amount of money as an increase. And the other part of the Proposition 2.5 problem is that gets us through a year, we run into the same problems again in the following years. There's not a one-shot panacea for all this.
So as we're working on side of the budget, and if we do find some reductions, I think timing-wise, Charlie, we're just looking to see, because we're gonna need school committee to vote on those reductions. What gives you enough time to put, you and Melanie, to put all the pieces together?
Well, I think, working with Dave, I mean, we know how big the envelope is in terms of what our revenues are.
Yeah, we'll be able to have further discussion on that on the Friday subcommittee. I think we're getting, I feel like we're getting pretty close to what we can do final on our side and what the gap will be.
Because I think most of the departments have submitted a revised budget.
A handful, but I'm still waiting for at least 2 of the big departments.
Once we get those, we'll be able to relook and see how everything can fit in, and what, if we can't fit everything in, what we're gonna need to be doing. I mean, it's relatively soon. I mean, we're already now in the last week of March. On a practical basis, I think by the middle of April, we need to have a budget to bring to the voters, even though it's a month to town meeting.
Well, our next meeting is scheduled for April 15, so unless we heard from you or someone to say, oh no, we need everything finalized well before that, we'd have to have a special meeting, which we certainly can do, but right now, the 15th is when we would look to wrap everything up.
I mean, I think you met your legal obligation to vote a budget and submit it, but I understand, obviously, just because you've done that does not mean it's the final word.
Right.
I mean, David.
I think we could have something a little more solid before April 15th.
Okay. That we can or should?
We should. And I think
And
we
can.
Better.
Okay. Yeah, Dave's speaking for you.
Yeah.
John? Okay. We'll keep at it, and if we can get some finalized numbers and turn over more rocks, we'll do that.
Well, I mean, at this point, talking with the departments, I got a great I got a great suggestion. We have not looked at our fees for quite some time, even in the select board office. And we may be considering raising fees. And it's not like we're gonna get $100,000 out of it. But even at this point, if we can get 10,000 here, 10,000 there, we're looking, for instance, for about $70,000 in budget changes here at Town Hall, for the Town Hall departments. If we can do that, if we can raise fees by, not at an absurd level, but sufficiently so that it can help balance off the cuts we might need to make, every bit's gonna help. And we're looking at numbers like that. We're not looking now at hundreds of thousands of dollars. At least for some budgets, we're looking at tens, we're looking at single $1,000s.
Okay.
Charlie, could you expand upon, I know some time ago, we talked about potentially taking this retirement and trying to bond it or something to that fact, to stretch that out. Just since we have everybody in the room here, can you clarify again one more time, like why it can or cannot happen? Because I've been told that there's other towns that have done that.
Right, but for instance, I think it was North Andover, they did it via a debt exclusion as an example, so that, and again, we're gonna, it's an additional tax
Right.
to do that.
Okay.
Our bond advisors, and they met with the school committee and the school administration, again, that phone call I talked about, they're looking at it and saying, you need to have a rate of return that will be offset by the fact you're paying interest. And they're thinking that along with it, we're gonna see sort of, not a perfect storm, but we're going, our bond rating will probably go down by doing this. We're gonna be paying, because it's a taxable bond, I think they were quoting 5.5%. And we're trying to get a return of 8, which means the margin is very, very small. We're not gonna gain very much of a cushion by doing so. Because what you're trying to do is take that money, make it earn enough money to pay for all the borrowing costs and everything, and enough of a gap between what you're now gonna be paying in interest. That's the problem, is that there were other, back pre-COVID, you might be able to borrow at 2 or 3%.
Right.
And now you'd be borrowing at 5.5%. So the cost of doing so, the risks of doing so, because if there's a downturn in the market, I just talked about Plymouth County and what happened this past month, we our money would go to Plymouth, but Plymouth would say, we had a bad year, you still owe us more money because it didn't earn enough.
So that number isn't solid, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Any other
It would
suggestions?
affect the bond rating also at that point?
Everything's gonna, I mean, the very fact that we're draining our stabilization funds are going to
Yeah, right.
affect our bond rating. I'm hoping not, if we move forward with Central School, we will borrow money, let's say, almost immediately after November of '26 for the work that needs to be done, November 25, to do the construction plans and such, everything up until we open up the bids in the tail end of '26. Then we go out for the big loan in early '27. We'll have drained it between now and then, we'll have drained a bit of our stabilization funds, at least according to plans we have. We're hoping that will not downgrade our bond rating by itself, but which would cause us to pay, I think they said maybe 1/4 to 1/2% on interest on our bonds. Even the ways we're trying to get us through those 6 years may damage the town's credit rating.
There was talk on that conversation also regarding perhaps doing an operational override to cover Plymouth County, and at the end of that payment, do an underride to eliminate it. And I'm not making up an underride, it really can happen.
Yeah, no, right. So we do it for 6 years, and in 2032, we go back to the town voters and say, you can cut your taxes by the amount that we were paying to Plymouth County.
Right, right.
So it'd be a limited time, but, it would be, we know what the amounts are. They're between, let's say, $4.5 and $6 million during these 6 years. I can't turn that into a tax rate increase, just sitting here right now, though.
Right.
But it might be the equivalent of, somewhere in the vicinity of what we're doing with Central in the long term.
And just from my own purposes, before you guys leave here, I know you said there's some cuts in the school department. Do we have an idea of what it will reflect on mostly? I mean, is it guidance counselors? Is it, do we have an idea right now of what we're looking at, where the changes will necessarily hit?
Yeah, so 10 of the positions will be directly related to enrollment. So class size right now is between 19 students in a classroom, which we thought was extremely important post-pandemic as students were coming back. With the reductions, class size average would be about 21, 22 students, which was typical pre-pandemic. So 10 of the positions would be directly related to class size. And then we have some secondary positions. We haven't had those conversations with staff yet as far as the specific positions, but positions that were added on to help support social emotional needs of students. Clearly in COVID, we had extra nursing staff at the building. So like I said, we're trying to be as mindful of, the actual academic learning that's going on in the classrooms and keeping those reductions as far away from the impact of eliminating programming altogether.
Again, we appreciate what everyone's doing out there, and the same thing's happening in town hall. We'll see you shortly.
And one thing I do want to emphasize, and these have been wonderful people to work with Melanie and everybody else who isn't here. And I think it's been mentioned, we're not the only ones. This is not a situation that East Bridgewater has mismanaged its finances to the extent that we're in this situation. The towns across Plymouth County, towns and cities across Massachusetts are confronting the same challenges that we are. Different levels of challenges, admittedly, but I think there are very, very few communities that are immune to financial difficulties right now.
Okay. Any other specific questions for us, or?
No, I think you're doing a great job. I think you've answered the best you can possibly do. But you're telling us that it's great.
Well, there's still more work to do, so we'll get at it and we'll let you know. the date. Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Committee, we're gonna stay and have a meeting with some two requests.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Dave. We'll move over here.
Charlie, if the retirement board gets a better than 8% return, does the town get any kickback?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
in a sense, yes, in the sense of they might be able to reduce our assessments, or at least the increases in the assessments each year. Instead of going up, let's say, about 8% per year, it might be 7%. And at this point, everything's gonna help.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
you know, if
Oh,
they
yeah.
can come to us, if they don't do as well, you know. or they
Well, yeah,
can
it
come back
works
to us
both
and-
ways, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
During the meeting, if you're done, I'll have to think on the meeting.
Oh, you're having your separate meeting?
Well, we can do it together, it's not a big deal.
Well, you get to be spectators.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll watch you, Dick. I haven't seen you in action for a while.
We've given a lot of space, we're gonna stay.
Yeah, right.
Adjourn
Oh, no, you
first.
gotta sign it.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, done.
Aye.
Hi. So we have
Aye, aye.
two requests here.